Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to present to you Shawn Hoh. Do you ever notice how rising leaders can be smart and driven, yet freeze when the pressure hits? They wait for approval, second guess themselves, hold back even when they know what to do. Some call it a confidence issue, but really the truth is much deeper. Shawn has spent years working at this exact point. As a former commando, he learned what clarity under stress really means. As director of A Force Protection, his own company, he led the company into the ASME 500 list. Through his coaching, he supported over 5,000 people over the last 5 years, helping leaders show up clearer, calmer, and with conviction. For that reason, he was awarded the Spirit of Service Award by the prestigious APSS for serving with heart and consistency in delivering value. Shawn's main core insight, and I'm really thrilled to learn about this, is when leaders feel safe, clear, and steady, they move with confidence instead of fear, and the teams follow with trust. She's a multi-potentialite, an active Muay Thai practitioner. Shawn lives by one simple rule. If it's not a full body yes, it's a no. That clarity drives everything that he does, and he's about to show us how that can work for us. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shawn Hoh.
Thank you very, very much, Chet. Now, a very good morning to everyone. As Chet has rightfully mentioned my name, I'm Shawn, and today we're going to talk about something that every organization feels, but doesn't always say out loud, right? And that's in developing the next wave, the next generation of leaders. Because we know that they're capable, but they might not always be ready. And the gap between that is getting very expensive. So let me just share with you very quickly about myself, right? I am a LinkedIn Top Voices of 2024. I got the Spirit of Service Award. I got my family business into the ASME 500 Awards of 2025. I am a business development director. So when I talk to you about next generation leadership, trust me, I'm speaking right from experience, all right? I took over the business 3 years ago and I've been running it till today. I've impacted more than 5,000 lives and counting over the last 5 years in my career. I'm obsessed with gamifying experiences. So for me, learning, training, L&D is not just about downloading content, but how do we experience that in a more fun and engaging way? How do we get our aha moments very subliminally? And I'm a dad to be in 29 days' time. So for myself, my core belief is in helping rising stars raise the bar. I've been asked, why do I choose to do this at such an early stage in my career? And it's for the simple reason that I want to see others achieve their breakthroughs, and I want to see others receiving some form of impact that can last them, that can stretch and stand through the test of time, right? Because very often we see that they go for workshops, they go for trainings, and 2-3 weeks later, they come back exactly the same. So I want to work on that because I believe that there is potential in the next generation, and everything I do, I wish someone did for me when I was at that stage of my career. So let's dive straight in. Developing the next generation of leaders is not easy. I was not someone who was easy to develop. See, they've got ideas, they have the energy, they want to do well, they want to prove themselves. But the minute things get tough, a lot of them start to pull back. And we start to wonder why, right? And that creates some form of divide where it's senior generation versus the junior generations, whether it's millennials or Gen Zs against the boomers. And it's not because they're weak, it's not because they don't care, but because they might not feel as supported or as steady. But do they necessarily speak about it? Not really. So what happens here is this: when there's tension, what happens after the tension is that there's a lot of low confidence, low self-esteem, a lot of self-doubt going around. Following that, it comes a lot of avoidant behavior because of that low sense of self-confidence, the feeling that I'm not worth it. Right? So there's a lot of these avoidant behaviors, avoidant conversation, and avoidant tendencies. Being so silenced, there's a lot of overthinking and stress that happens in due process, and fears start to manifest and it starts poking a lot of holes, which is why you start to see that those in my generation, if you looked at our LinkedIn profiles, you would note that we have more than 5 experiences after 10 years. We have then very weakened engagements between leaders and employees and teams, right? They become so disengaged that everything just falls not to them and they turn to a mode of approval seeking. That anything I do, since it's not good enough, since I don't have the confidence to do this, I'll just be a listener, I'll just be a good follower. and hope that I don't get called out, right? So they do things for approval. And worst thing is they do things for the sake of doing it. They just go through the motions. And internally, they're frustrated. They want to blame something, but they don't know what to blame, and they blame themselves. And that just drives further tensions within the organization. I know this because this happened exactly to me with the senior executives in my organization. One of them happens to be my mother. Until I could speak out, until I could learn the skills to develop and grow those conversations, to have that healthy sense of development as a leader, that was when I could take the company forward. And so because of this particular loop, that is the challenge with developing the next generation. And here's what it's going to cost you. All right. Productivity is going to take a massive dip, because when people start to second guess themselves, they wait for approval, everything loses speed and momentum. Once that happens, you start to see a rise in friction, because people tend to avoid the harder conversations, or you would see this more often, people start to talk to each other in a more passive-aggressive tone. And over time, when people feel underappreciated, you lose your pipeline. Some leave and some stay, but they just plateau and they stop growing. And this isn't just a soft issue, right? It's not something that we can go to bed, wake up the next day hoping that it disappears. This is a business problem with a price tag, because we are hiring people, we are hiring the next generation, but we want to make sure that there's value that's being transacted. Not just the value that they give to the organization, but the value that the organization can give to them as well. And here's what the data is telling us. This is my favorite part. Why? Because this is localized to Singapore. According to Deloitte, for Gen Zs and Millennials in 2025, only 8% of Gen Zs actually want leadership positions as their primary career aim. They're looking at things like finances, they're looking at things like meaning and well-being, right, according to what they want in their career. Randstad Singapore Work Monitor 2025 says that 67% of Gen Zs in Singapore would quit if they feel that they didn't belong to an organization. 21% of them have quit a job because they have no friends at work. They've got no one that they can turn to. And only 49% trust their employers to build a fair, thriving culture. Now, I don't know about you, but 49%, some might argue, oh, it's close to 50. We've got almost half. Yeah, the sad truth is you don't even have half. All right. Another Randstad Gen Z report states that Gen Zs in Singapore expect rapid career progression and very clear growth tracks. So when organizations are not able to tell the next generation how we hope for you to grow and develop yourselves, and we leave it to them without any direction, that's when we start to see them fall off the pipeline. That's when we start to see the turnovers happening really, really quickly, right? They're looking for strong guidance, strong feedback. And most importantly, they're also looking for mentorship so that they can grow in their own right. Finally, Career Minds Singapore says that Gen Zs in the workplace, that they want leaders who can offer authenticity, clarity, and safety. Not just pressure or having hierarchy being imposed on them, but they want to see that sense of care, compassion in the workplace for someone who genuinely desires for them to grow, as I have with all my mentors and my leaders. So what does this tell us? What does all of this tell us? It tells us that if we do not fix this gap, teams start to slow down, tensions will build, and the next wave of leaders will never form. So, okay, we get it, right? The gap is real. The next generation of leaders need the help. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And here's what I feel the next generation needs, based on my work with the next generation, and based on all these different reports that I just presented to you. None of this is fancy. It's stuff that we probably already know, but we haven't worked upon them yet. So the first thing that they need is clear direction. Why clear direction? Because they need to lead to faster and cleaner decisions. They need to stop second guessing themselves and stop with the overthinking, right? To be empowered to take the next step forward. They need straight talk so that nothing is softened or lost, so that everyone is aligned and kept moving. They need steadiness so that they don't react under pressure, but they can respond accordingly, right? We want to give them a calm anchor, something that they can fall back to when things get heated up. We want them to have this sense of cross-level awareness so that whether it's them talking to a senior or them talking to a junior, they are able to function effectively across the different generations. And finally, to have respect without fear so that trust can grow. right? We want them to thrive in the organization, not just come to work for the sake of showing up to work, as unfortunate as that might sound. So these 5 shifts break the entire leadership loop that I just presented to you. Now the question is, if we know what they need, how exactly are we going to do this? I believe that there always needs to be a point where there is a reset, right? A point where everyone comes to a form of alignment, we clear the canvas, and we share the kind of clarity that we need. The second thing that we're going to need is a sense of skills training. Because as much as we think that, everything is just skills and competencies and KPIs and reports, you cannot run away from the fact that there are certain competencies that they need to present themselves to have and demonstrate at work in order to get things done. And finally, coaching afterwards, it's for us to turn all these learned skills into actual habits. Because we don't just want them to learn it, we don't just want them to demonstrate it for a while, we want them to embody it in the things that they do on a daily basis so that it's kept perpetual and moving in motion, right? So if we want leaders who show up steady when it counts, this is the sequence that works. Now you would see that under coaching afterwards, I wrote there bracket for those who really want it. And I lay this only as a very special condition for those who are in the chain that really value that sense of growth and development. Because at the skill level, everyone is well equipped. But at the coaching level, that's when we know who's actually serious. And that's going to help you filter out who your next generation of leaders are. So how is this going to work? In phase 1, we'll go through what we call the talk, right? Not the talk that mom and dad had with you, but the talk that gets everyone on the same page, right? The key here is to align expectations, lower certain tensions, create a sense of safety that we're all in this together, and to surface any blind spots that we might not have seen coming. Second, then comes in the skills training, and that's where we dedicate some time towards building core skills needed for leaders to succeed. They can make faster decisions, they can communicate clearly with each other, they can stay calm under pressure, they learn how to work better across all levels, and they demonstrate what I call a trustworthy leadership presence. Let's face it, when you're next generation and when you're looking like this, there's a lot to prove on the table because we don't have a track record, we have little to no experience, and we're fresh into the market. So for a lot of leaders, especially for those who are first-time leaders, there is more to prove. And the best way that we can go about it is to help people trust us more so that we can continue taking on the bigger projects, give more value, and be of a bigger impact to the organization and society after that. Finally, we'll have follow-up coaching. And again, like I mentioned, this is the part that's only for the selected few because this is where change actually holds. We want to take these skills and translate them into real situations, right? Fix the blind spots, support them when things get tough, and build some form of consistency and momentum, right? Because training is going to give the skill, but coaching, that's going to give the behavior. I have a little framework that I designed on my own, and it really just leads these first-time leaders, these next generation leaders, into 3 categories, or rather, should I say 3 phases. Phase 1 is when we talk about leading the self. This is where we talk about clarity, ownership, and alignment. The next phase is what I call lead others, where you need to have connection, empathy, and credibility. And finally, leading forward, where you have accountability, courage, and legacy. So, how does all this look like? It's going to bring them into what I call the breakthrough point. Because there comes a little tipping point when a next generation leader has learned all these skills, and there has to be that sense of sick and tired of feeling sick and tired before action is taken. And we're going to drive that forward in these 3 phases. So in lead self, we're going to focus on how to be grounded under pressure, how to take personal ownership of things that are happening, developing a clear sense of inner direction, showing up as a trustworthy, steady presence, and building a personal leadership code. Then we talk about leading others, right? How do you create trust among other people? How do you get people to trust you? How do you manage your peers and your seniors? How do you handle conflict with grace and clarity? And how do you have that sense of clean delegation and follow through? Finally, we have leading forward, right? Once we know how to lead ourselves and lead the people around us, we got to lead the organization forward into the future. So that's a lot about how do you name the direction? How do you set a strategy? How do you make a firm decision, even though you might not be very confident with it? How do you move teams without distress? How do you have that courage in action? And how do you build teams that uphold very strong standards. This is the full system that shapes confidence, clarity, and steadiness for the next generation of leaders, right? This is not theory. This is the work that's needed. This is the work that I've been through, and this is the work that I currently help others go through as well. When all this is done right, you'll get this. You get the top that creates the readiness in people. They start to feel aligned and safe, right? And we have the skills that come after that, the training that lands well. We have the coaching that turns those skills into behavior. We have them build that sense of consistency so that they have the confidence to be a trustworthy leadership presence. And that just reinforces alignment all over. And it's a perpetual loop that brings people into the future. It's the thing that helps them achieve that level of success. Now, if we don't put this through, misalignment starts to grow. People will keep reading situations differently and get mixed signals. The skills won't stick. Old habits will return very, very fast. Friction starts to arise again, and then you have to face the retention, a spike in your turnovers and problems with your retention. That's a problem that I think none of us want. So what I'm trying to say here is this. At the end of the day, we're only looking at three types of outcomes: for organizations, for leaders, and for teams. For organizations, it's to have that clear, stronger leadership pipeline. For leaders, it's to have more confidence in key moments, sharper communication, and a sense of clarity. And finally, for teams, that clearer sense of direction that they can act on. Now, earlier on, I shared with you that I'm all about helping rising stars raise the bar, and I still am. 5,000 lives over the last 5 years was not easy, but every single one of them, absolutely worth it. So my friends, I invite you to connect with me either on LinkedIn, or you can scan and drop me a text on WhatsApp, because I'm of the mind that we need to help them step forward with clarity, steadiness, and confidence. So if this is something that your leaders need, I'm ready when you are. Thank you.